It is New Year's Eve 2024. Tomorrow will be a whole new year. And I wanted to make this video because I have a lot of years of experience of setting New Year's resolutions and failing miserably and being very disappointed. Because let's face it, you don't have to wait until the new year to set a resolution. You don't have to wait until the new year to start a new change, to create new habits, to remove things in your life that aren't helping you. All of those things can be changed right now. They can be changed tomorrow. They can be changed next week. They can be changed next month. So I think before we even begin this video, it's really important to remember that regardless of the time of year, you can make change at any point you want. And more importantly, if you fuck up, which statistically, we're all very likely to fuck up our New Year's resolutions. There's like some statistic that 95% of people have failed their New Year's resolution by the second week or something. It's important to remember that if you fuck up, you don't have to wait another 12 months. You don't have to wait another year to begin those changes again, to start those resolutions. But I want to share with you the principles that I have learned that have helped make change much easier. And the reason I'm making it at this time of year is because that is when most people are considering making change. And so I felt it was a good time. There's going to be a lot of content coming out about how to make 2025 the best year of your life. And a lot of them are going to have, let's face it, pretty complicated systems. They're going to hit you with a ton of facts on how to create habits and create change in your life and what statistically is going to work. I don't know about any of that stuff. I can only share what has worked for me. And I want to start by sharing, I guess, a story of a friend I used to have. We've drifted apart over the years, but we both got into our kind of self-development journey at a similar time. But we both approached our goals very differently. And I would say that she had far more success than I did with her technique. And so I'll share with you my technique first, because I will share with you what doesn't work. So I made a video yesterday talking about this concept of something either being a fuck yes or a fuck no. When you're making a big decision in life, you're either in or you're out. There is no sitting on the fence. Sitting on the fence is what causes this kind of insecurity and this doubt, and which causes stagnation. And so for me, whenever I have had this idea about a particular change that I wanted to make, it might be a diet change, it might be going to the gym more, it might be running more, it might be going out and socializing more. Whatever it is, it was my approach to go from 0 to 60 as quickly as I possibly could. And so I would always try and jump in the deep end. I would always try to fill my life with as much of the thing as possible in order to kind of shock my system into changing. And so this is what I would do. I would create a plan over the space of several days or several weeks of exactly the type of person I wanted to be, the type of things that I wanted to achieve. And let's just take the gym as an example. I would then sign up for an expensive gym membership for 12 months. So I would commit myself financially. And then I would select a very intense training plan with very little regard for nutrition, for the amount of time that I had to dedicate to this thing, the sacrifices that it would take from my current life. And I would do it. And I would do it for a week, maybe a month, maybe a few months tops. But eventually I would get so tired and burned out that I would fail. And that failure would lead to disappointment. And as this cycle continued over the years, not just with my fitness goals, but financial goals, personal goals, relationship goals, whatever they might be, as I created this bank of memories of failure, it became harder and harder for me every year to create change. And so I have found recently that there is a very different way of doing things that makes it far easier not only to create change, but to actually go through that process of change as well. And that was the approach that my friend had, probably still does. I want to take one example, which is meditation. Now, we both got into meditation at a very similar time, and I decided that I was going to meditate for half an hour twice a day. That's an hour of meditation, and for anyone that's never really done meditation before, you'll find that that is an incredibly difficult target to achieve. It is an incredibly frustrating process, and your brain will come up with 1,000,001 different reasons as to why you shouldn't sit down for half an hour twice a day and attempt to empty your mind or observe your mind. And so inevitably, we started at a similar time, but I failed much quicker. Now, her approach, which is the approach that I use today, was much simpler. And her approach was to simply create the minimal effective dose of that thing that you could do in order to get the benefits of building a habit or of the habit itself, while not creating too much resistance in your conscious or subconscious mind. And so her approach was to meditate for 30 seconds twice a day. So you can see the difference here. My approach was to meditate for 30 minutes twice a day, and her approach was to meditate for 30 seconds twice a day. Now, we both had an equal amount of things going on in our lives, an equal amount of commitments. And yet, because her goal was so much more achievable, it was almost laughably small, that there was no good reason as to why she couldn't sit there for 30 seconds and meditate. It might seem so utterly pointless, but the key here is that she was building a habit. She was building this thing into her mind that actually meditation wasn't too difficult. And you're probably going to guess where this goes next. After she got into this habit of 30 seconds and it became a regular thing, and she'd done that for a week or two, she then upped it. She upped it to a minute twice a day. And then she got into the habit of doing that. And then she did it for 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And eventually she was meditating for half an hour twice a day by the end of the year. Whereas I had meditated for half an hour twice a day for a month. And then I had quit because I always had a good excuse or a reason why I couldn't meditate for an hour of the day. An hour is a big chunk of the day, and I had a lot to do, so I always had a valid excuse not to do it. Whereas 30 seconds, there's no excuse for that. And so when it comes to making changes, whatever those changes you want to make, my suggestion is just to make them as tiny as possible. Think of the big end goal that you want to achieve. Let's assume you want to get in shape this year. Let's assume you want to lose some weight, you want to lose some fat, I should say, and you want to gain some muscle. And you know that you're going to have to go down the gym to do that. You're going to have to change your diet. And if you were like me back in the day, you would sign up for an expensive gym membership, commit yourself to 12 months, create this massive nutrition plan, go out and do a huge shop so you've got all your food sorted. If you do that, there are a few people that technique works for. You have to have the willpower of a god, in my opinion, to do that. So let's work from a different perspective. Let's assume that we are not going to be able to achieve that goal. Let's assume that that thing is going to be very difficult, that we are going to have excuses, that life is not perfect and will inevitably throw up problems that will cause us to avoid these new habits. So what can we do instead? Well, firstly, we don't need to sign up to a gym membership. You know full well that you can work out from home. You can do press-ups, sit-ups, any kind of body weight circuits. So let's go down to doing body weight circuits, okay? Now, do we have to do a half an hour or an hour workout? No, you don't. Just do 10 push-ups a day, 10 sit-ups a day, 10 squats a day. So it's just 30 sets, and just do that for a week. In terms of your nutrition, maybe just cut back on the amount of processed food you eat, or drink a little bit more water. Whatever it is, make those changes so small and incremental that they don't really have an effect on your life, and then build on it from there. There is just so much pressure out there on people having to make change and make it quickly. And what I found is that I was trying to make these huge changes and then failing, and then trying to overcompensate by making even bigger changes. And there was this constant start, stop, start, stop. And the real key to building any kind of change in your life, or becoming a type of person that you want to be, is doing small things consistently. If you do things consistently enough, you start to become the person that you want to be. Instead of flogging yourself to create these massive changes that you inevitably fail on, because all I was doing was building up this picture in my head that I am a failure, that I am someone that cannot achieve their goals. And so every year when I would make these goals, there would always be this subconscious part of my brain that was telling me that I knew that this wasn't going to work. And then I had to fight with real willpower to try and get through it, which inevitably led to more disappointment. So the biggest takeaway I can say for any of you that are considering making change this year, next year, whenever it's going to be, is to make those changes small. Don't sweat the big details. Don't overthink it. Just make one small change and just be consistent with it. And once that's become a habit, then build on it from there. Build on something really small and let it grow. Like a snowball going down the side of a mountain, right? You roll this little snowball up, and you roll it down the hill, and it's small and it's slow to start with, but as it gets momentum and as it keeps building more snow and gaining more weight, the speed starts building, and eventually you can't stop that tiny little snowball. It's going to take out the town below it. That's the kind of change that we're looking to make. And that's the kind of change that I have learned works for me. And so I hope it works for you. There's another really key core element to making change, I found. And without this particular belief, this particular element of the process, you're going to find it really difficult to make the change in the first place. And that is having a strong why. And let me explain that. Having a strong why is understanding exactly why you are doing something. You need to understand that there is a perfectly good reason why you are doing the thing that you're doing. I put the concept of finances into perspective quite a lot with this one. For me, for a long time, when I first went into sales, for instance, I was something like £20,000 in debt, £25,000 in debt. And it was getting to the point where my repayments on the interest were higher than my normal outgoings. And I realised that I was spending more on interest than I was on living. And that scared the shit out of me. And so this fear, this deep burning desire to get out of the slavery that I felt was being in debt, was the motivation, was the why that I needed to work hard in my sales job. And interestingly enough, when I got out of debt, when I had earned enough and suddenly I was making more money than I needed every month, I'd lost that motivation because the why changed. And I didn't realise that at the time. As a courier turned out. Always bad timing when making these videos. So let's assume that money is your major goal for this year. Let's assume that you want to make more money. And let's assume for a minute that you're not in any particular financial peril like I was, that you simply want to make more money because you want a nicer house, you want to afford a nicer car. For me personally, and it may be different for you, but I know for a lot of people, that in itself, affording nicer things, sometimes is not the motivation that you need in order to make more money. It's not a strong enough pull. And something that I found from studying a lot of famous millionaires, billionaires, is an awful lot of them come from a place of poverty, or they come from a place of lack. And they always had a strong desire to create value and to make money because they wanted to help their families. They wanted to make sure that the next generation of their family, that their children, didn't have to go through what they did. And so that motivation and that strength of pull is so strong that that's what they need to get through the inevitable challenges that come with making change. And so we're looking at two different people here. One that just wants to get rich for the sake of getting rich, so they could afford a nice house and a Lamborghini. This is very much coming from the ego. It's wanting to impress people. And then you've got the second type of person that wants to avoid suffering. They want to ensure that the future generations don't have to go through the same level of suffering. They don't want to experience the same level of poverty that they had to grow up in. Out of those two people, who do you think is going to have the most drive for change? It's the same with cigarette smoking. I attempted to give up for many, many years before I actually successfully did it, and I documented that process on this channel. Most people have to have some kind of major health scare before they really consider giving up smoking. Or you might wake up one morning in this coughing fit and coughing up all this shit, and you, like I did, and you suddenly realize that if you carry on like this, that you are going to age prematurely, you're going to die prematurely, and every part of your life suffers as a consequence of that. If you're staring down the barrel of a cancer diagnosis, then that's a pretty strong motivator to quit smoking. The point I'm getting to here is that you need to have a strong enough why in order to make a change. So there are two key ingredients when it comes to making successful changes for 2025 and beyond. And that is to set a goal, make that goal as small and as achievable as humanly possible, and to thoroughly understand the why of that goal. And when you've got those three things coupled together, you stand a much higher chance of success. And if you don't succeed, remember that there isn't a failure. Take what you've learned from that situation. Maybe you didn't have enough time to do that particular goal. Maybe it was too much for you. Maybe it was unrealistic for whatever reason. Use that as a lesson to set your next goals, and don't wait until the following year to set goals. Every passing minute is an opportunity for you to set new goals and make a change. You don't have to wait for 2025 and beyond. So, yeah, I know, having spoken to a lot of people on this channel and in my men's group, I know 2024 has been a tough year for a lot of people. I think we're still really recovering from the effects of COVID, the social isolation that we all faced, and now the economic insecurity, the lack of jobs. There's an awful lot of problems, and I know 2024 has been really, really tough, and there isn't really many signs that the economy or whatever is going to get much better in 2025, but we can change. There are changes we can make in our own personal circumstances, in our attitudes. We can improve ourselves so that we are more resilient in the face of change. We can't change the fact that the job market's shit, but we can change how healthy our bodies are and how healthy our minds are. And in that sense, we can cope with the problems that come up much easier. So, I just want to wish you a happy new year. I hope 2025 is an awesome one for you. I want to continue making videos for this channel, sharing my experiences, sharing my own goals and the failures or the lessons that I learned along the way. And I'm really excited about sharing that journey with you guys. So let me know in the comments, what are your goals for 2025? What are your New Year's resolutions? What are your hopes and dreams for the future? And as we continue to build this beautiful community, it's just such a nice thing to see how many of you are so involved with the channel. It's just it's a beautiful thing. You know, we are maybe lacking in-person community, but we've certainly got better at building online ones, and that's what I'm hoping to build here. So Happy New Year's. I hope you have an awesome one, whatever you're doing, whoever you're sharing it with. Maybe you're on your own. Whatever it is, just understand that at any point you can make a change. You don't have to wait till next year for New Year's to make a change. And whatever your circumstances, things will get better, and they can get better. So I wish you all the best, and I'll see you next year.